Dieting essentially trains people how not to eat. This is how you resist all these good foods. This is how you really struggle and use your willpower to not eat this and not eat that. And so people are focused on not eating.
Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Performance Life podcast. Today, I'm very excited to be speaking about a topic that I have been thinking a lot about recently. As I've mentioned before, we've had a lot of guests on this show that specialize in certain types of nutrition or diets or fitness and exercise. And there's so much information, right? We have over 100 episodes about how the right way to do things, or the right or different philosophies, which probably any of which you could choose would probably work. But I'm always fascinated with the psychology behind that. And that's why I'm excited to have the founder of the Psychology of Eating. He's the primary teacher. His name is Marc David. He's the founder and primary teacher of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, and he's the author of the best-selling books called Nourishing Wisdom and The Slow Down Diet. His mission in work and life is to help people create an empowered relationship with food and body and learn to use their eating and health challenges as a pathway for transformation. So, Marc, thank you for joining us here today.
Talor, thanks for inviting me. Good to be in conversation with you.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with a little background. How did you get interested in this type of work that you're doing today?
You know, like so many of us, it was out of personal necessity. I was one of those human beings born into this world, sickly and asthmatic and immunocompromised when I was an infant. And I grew up not being able to run around and not being able to breathe. My parents took me from doctor to doctor. Nothing helped. And I think I was about 5 years old. I'd heard a rumor that fruits and vegetables were good for you. You know, this was back in the early 1960s. And I don't think I'd ever had real food because I was part of that generation that was raised on TV dinners and such. So I asked my mother to buy me apples and peas and carrots in a can because that was my concept of fruits and vegetables. Coincidence or not, as I changed my diet, my health changed and I was off to the races. I became a nutrition fanatic and, took that up as my happiness, my hobby, my passion, and my work in the world. And, I just noticed very quickly, in my early 20s, I had a practice because I was raised in New York. I had a practice on Wall Street. Of all the places you can be. And my clients were some of the most highly educated, highly motivated, highly stressed people that you could possibly meet. And majority of them wanted to lose weight. They'd come to see me. I'd give them a great diet. I'd tell them what to eat. And I guess about 80 or 90% of them would come back to me a couple of weeks later and say, I know what you told me to do. I know what I'm supposed to do. I just couldn't do it. And little light bulb went off in my head. I thought, something, until I understand the mind of the eater, I really can't help people. So I figured I'd read a book or take a course, and there wasn't anything. And at some point, I decided I would write the book and create the course someday that I wish I could have taken. So that just put me on the road from being a nutrition fanatic to being an eating psychology devotee.
Yeah, amazing. And I knew as soon as I saw your website was literally called psychologyofeating.com, and I was like, this is perfect. This is, you couldn't have a better description, for your website as well. So tell people a little bit about what is it? What are some of the realizations that you've gained and learned over the years, and some of the things that maybe you talk about, in your books or in your work?
So much. So let's pull out a couple of concepts. Yeah. Let's take the concept, for instance, the common complaint. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what I want to eat. I want to eat healthy. I want to eat this diet, but I just can't do it. I find myself sabotaging myself. Mm-hmm. And so there's a number of different reasons why that happens. One reason why people sabotage themselves is because normally when you think of you and I think of me, we're like this one person. You're this one guy. You're Talor. I'm Marc. And as psychology actually tells us, we're less a person and more like a crowd. We have different voices inside of our head. We have different archetypes or different personas. And in any given moment, any one of those personas will tend to be dominant and will tend to be sitting at the head of the table. So you and I engaging in a conversation, you're in your professional persona, I'm in my professional persona, and you might finish up here and you might have kids and you might all of a sudden, boom, you're in your father personality. And then if you go out to eat with your best friend, you're in your best friend personality. And when you're being a teacher, you're in your teacher personality. And when you're being a perfectionist, you're in that mode. So what happens is a lot of times when people are sabotaging themselves, it's because there's an archetype that is operating beneath our awareness. Sometimes it's the child in me. So a lot of people have heard of the inner child archetype. The child in us, it's sweet, it's wonderful, it has all these beautiful attributes. And as well, the child in me wants immediate gratification. That's what kids want. I want what I want when I want it. Kids don't care about future consequences. You can't tell a 7-year-old, hey, you really shouldn't eat all this sugar. It might lead to diabetes someday. All they know is it tastes good. Who's worried about diabetes? So the child in us wants instant gratification. And a lot of times that's who is sitting at the head of the table when we're making our food choices. Sometimes you might have been raised, and this is a lot of my clients, they were told when they were kids, you're chubby, you got to lose weight. And one of the ways people deal with that is we get rebellious. So a lot of us have the inner rebel. And the inner rebel, it's a great archetype. It's the part of us that stands up to injustice, that stands up for a new way of doing things, and doesn't want to have rules that don't work. And, oh my God, I have to follow this diet. I have to eat this specialty food. I don't want to do it. I'm not listening. I'm going to do whatever I want to do because I'm a rebel. Mm. And a lot of times the rebel in us takes over. It's acting against us, but the rebel just needs some expression. So when we start to notice those voices, we can work with them as opposed to, oh, what's wrong with me? So if something's wrong with me, then I'm stuck in the conversation called poor me, I'm deficient, I'm a willpower weakling. And no, it's never about willpower. There's so many different reasons other than willpower why I would go for a food that I say I don't wish to go for. So the inner archetypes, that's one reason why.
Very interesting. Very interesting. What about, I find that there's a lot of almost, I almost call it health shaming sometimes, like peer pressure or people. Like I remember when I first started eating, burgers without a bun, on lettuce instead or something like that, right? If I would go out and I would order, something on a protein, with lettuce instead of on a bun, and people would be like, what? There's always comments being made. There's always like this pressure. Have you found that also to be kind of just with a family, right? Your family is so used to cooking certain foods or eating a certain way. There's a lot of outside pressures, I think, that could be affecting people, right?
I believe so. And I think part of that, Talor, is that food in many ways is our original kind of religion. We have been for eons of time, we gather around food, we gather around the campfire, we hunt together, we gather together, and then we cook together, we eat together. So food is togetherness. And when you and I, when we all sit down to the same meal, we have the same food in our bodies. And there's a connection. We're sharing. We're part of a tribe. We're part of an ethic. And as soon as you start to break out of that and you say to the tribe, no, now the tribe could be your family. The tribe could be your friends. The tribe could just be all of culture that says to you, well, just eat the Wonder Bread and just eat the crap food that's here. And you might say, well, no. The smart rebel in you is going, I'm not going to follow those rules. So people will feel as if they're being alienated oftentimes. Family will feel like, wait a second, you're different from me now. you're ostracizing me. We take it personally as human beings sometimes. So it's a tricky thing. I think it takes a lot of awareness. It takes a lot of maturity. It takes a lot of consciousness to give each other space around our preferences for anything, whether it's your preferences for how you dress, for how you look, for how you eat, for who you hang out with, for what you read.
Yeah. Yeah. It's spot on. Yeah. And so how do people become aware of these things? I know obviously you have, training certifications, and I think this is where coaches and trainings really are helpful, because it's hard to see that. It's so for myself, especially too, it's very easy for me to see in others, how to coach other people. But, when it comes to yourself, seeing your own blind spots becomes a little bit more tricky. How can someone maybe who's listening become a little bit more aware or figure this out?
I love this question. I think a part of it, one of the kind of guidelines that I love to follow when it comes to understanding our eating psychology, guideline is that our relationship with food and body is a great teacher. And therefore, our unwanted eating challenges, whatever they might be, my weight, my extra weight, my emotional eating, my binge eating, my overeating, whatever my complaint is, even if it's a health complaint, my digestive issues, my headache, my fatigue, it's a great teacher. So first question to ask is, what am I being asked to learn here? Because normally what happens is when we have an unwanted eating challenge, let's say somebody's emotionally eating, they can't control themselves around sugar, they can't control themselves around chocolate. The first place we tend to go is, what's wrong with me? And when we go to what's wrong with me, we never quite get an answer, because that question assumes a model of pathology. There's something wrong with you. Well, no, you and I are growing, learning beings. When you're 5 months old, what's wrong with you that you can't walk? There's nothing wrong with you. You're going to be learning soon. First, you learn how to crawl. Nothing wrong with you. Then you learn how to walk. Great. At some point, you don't know how to read. You're learning that. So there's nothing wrong with you if you're a toddler and you can't read. And so what's my emotional eating trying to teach me? So just asking that question, I think, creates a little bit more expansion. Somebody with an excess weight challenge, sometimes it might be teaching people to, okay, you need to learn how to feed yourself better. You need to learn more about nutrition. You need to learn about what works for your body. Okay, there's one thing. Might be teaching you to learn how to listen to your body. It might be teaching you patience, because so many people who want to lose weight, they want to lose it yesterday, and they're freaked out that they're not losing it right now. And I have worked with so many weight loss clients, and the more freaked out you are, the less easier it is to find your natural weight.
Yeah. It's funny. We recently interviewed a 102-year-old lady. She's a doctor, Dr. Gladys. Yeah. And she actually talks about, in her book, The Well-Lived Life, she talks about fear versus love, and how you can't get out of pain or get out of a certain situation that you're in if you're just constantly in fear, and how she, talks about love. So it's really spot on what you're saying. And it's a big challenge, because these days, someone just doesn't feel good, then they decide to search Google and they see a million different symptoms and they think they have some other major issue, and this causes even more fear and just kind of makes the cycle even much more extreme, and then they get freaked out, and that can make the matters worse. But I also really like the question that you mentioned, asking, and also it reminds me of what Tony Robbins says about be aware of the questions that you're asking yourself, right? Like you mentioned, some people saying, what's wrong with me? That's the wrong question to be asking yourself. And when you ask that question, you get bad answers that don't serve you, versus if you, say, what can I learn from this? What is this trying to teach me?
Absolutely. Well put. And it's hard to make that shift, because we grow up in a world that kind of gives us the message, something is wrong with you. So, you need to fix yourself. You need therapy. And it doesn't mean therapy is bad. It doesn't mean medical intervention is bad. Yeah, sometimes I need that, but still, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. We're on a journey. And, so many times I tell my clients, I have so many clients who I will call them nutrition refugees. So many people out there, they have read every book and they've listened to all the experts and they're lamenting. There's so many different diets. There's so many different experts. There's so many different sets of scientific proof telling you eat this, don't eat that. And everybody disagrees with each other and it's all different. Should I eat paleo? Should I eat vegan? Should I eat raw? Whatever it is. And at the end of the day, no matter what nutritional system you follow, it's all going to have the same result. We're all going to die. We're all going to the same place. So we're all going to die. So I like to ask the question, who do I wish to be as an eater? And what do I want from my relationship with food? What do I want from food? A lot of people aren't clear about what they want with food, and we have these magical wants. A lot of times, well, I want food. When you really start to break it down with people, we want food to make us beautiful. We want it to make us thin. We want it to keep us healthy. We want it to make us disease-free. We want food to give us lots of energy. And we kind of want to have food make us live forever. And those are all nice. Those are nice desires. And part of it is looking at, okay, I want health from my food. I want pleasure from my food. And I also have to look, what am I bringing to the table in that whole process? So am I creating health by thinking healthy thoughts, by living a healthy life, by being a healthy person inside? It's sure I want pleasure from food, but a lot of people, food is their only pleasure. I'm thinking so many people that I've worked with over the years will say, I'm hooked on chocolate. So that's a common one. I just can't stop eating chocolate. You have to help me stop because it's making me fat. I want to lose this weight, but I can't stop eating chocolate. And invariably, when I get into the story, the food story, the life story of the person that I'm working with, I often find out that in the rest of their life, they don't quite have what they want. So a lot of times people are lonely. A lot of times they don't have connection. They don't have relationship. They don't have intimacy. They don't like their job. And guess what? They love chocolate. Guess what? Chocolate is actually the best thing they have going in their life. No wonder you're turning to chocolate. You don't like your life. You just described a life to me that's, for you, not worth living. So I actually would never take away chocolate from you because chocolate's your only pleasure. So instead of making chocolate the problem, chocolate's your solution. It's not your problem. It's your solution. It's your solution to not enough connection, pleasure. Psychologists call this symbolic substitute. When I can't get the thing I actually really want, I want love. I want relationship. I want marriage. For example, if I can't get the thing I really want, I reach for the closest approximation. And for a lot of people, the closest approximation to love, pleasure, connection is food, because food does make us feel pleasure in the moment. It does bring us back to this beautiful sense of home base. So instead of fighting chocolate, it's time to elevate the rest of your life. And all of a sudden we go from food is the problem to no, food is your solution. Food is trying to teach you. Your relationship with chocolate is teaching you that you have to make the rest of your life at least as good as chocolate, because then you won't need to eat it so much.
That is really good. I haven't heard it explained that way. And most everyone else would just basically say, no chocolate, you're not allowed to have it. And we're going to make sure you don't eat it. And you got to report to me every day and all that. But again, that just might make the person more miserable. Now, of course, the end goal might be to cut out chocolate, but work on other aspects first. So that's really interesting. So that's a lot of the work that you'll do. How do you typically work with patients when you're coaching people, talking to people? you'll basically look at their entire lives and start basically working with them, kind of similar in a similar way to traditional psychology, or how would it differ?
You know, I'm trained in traditional psychology. I love the coaching model. So, and I'll borrow tools from honestly any tradition that works. But at the end of the day, I look at working with another human being, just as you and I are doing. We're in a conversation. It's a conversation amongst equals. Now, you might know a little bit more about this, and I might know a little bit more about that. But it's a conversation amongst equals. And if I'm working with a client or a patient, I'm their mentor, I'm their guide, I'm their cheerleader. I'm the person helping them deal with their unwanted challenge, deal with their complaint. So I want to hear my client's complaint first and foremost. Like, what's the problem? If you could wave your magic wand, what would you have with food and body? So I want to listen for what people really want. Yeah. Example, so many people, weight loss is a $500 billion a year worldwide industry. So a lot of people are wanting to lose weight. And what most people don't do is they don't actually break it down. So Mr. and Mrs. Client, why do you want to lose weight? Like, what are you expecting? Like, you're going to lose weight. Let's say you lose the 50 pounds. You have the body that you want. What's going to be different? Now, so I want to just break that down with somebody because you're putting all this energy to go for something. I just want to know. I'm curious. Why? Now, people give you all different kind of answers centered around the following. I'm going to feel lighter. I'm going to fit into my skinny clothes. But also the main ones are I'm going to be more confident. I'm going to be more out there. I'm going to be the real me. This body, this overweight body, this is not the real me. So I'm going to be confident. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to just feel good about myself. I'm going to be happy. Now, probably all the reasons I just mentioned for people wanting to lose weight, they all point to, I will be happier. Some people say, well, it's going to make me healthy. Well, being healthy is going to make you happier. So it's all geared towards, this is going to make me happier. And then I want to look with my client of how they're going about the business of weight loss. Because most people are following a weight loss journey that includes a ton of self-attack, self-hate, look in the mirror, thinking very unkind thoughts, saying very unkind words to self. People can have a very, very terrible internal conversation. A lot of body hate, a lot of weight hate that we will carry towards ourselves. And then we'll punish ourselves with low-calorie diet. We'll punish ourselves with exercise that we really don't like. And the exercise is really a punishment for having body fat. It's a punishment for having eaten food. So we're punishing ourselves with food, with diet, with unkind thoughts. And how can a journey, a path of punishment possibly end up in a destination of, I'm happy? Yeah. Like, I've never had a person tell me, I dieted for 10 years. I was miserable. I cursed myself every day and I hated my diet. I punished myself with exercise. And one day I woke up and I was perfect and I was all happy. Doesn't go like that. So if a person is going to go on a weight loss journey, we have to make sure that they're beginning to receive the end results of weight loss at the outset and along the way. So people often promise themselves, well, I'm going to be the real me when I lose the weight. Like, no, be the real you now. And let's go about the business of losing weight. But you could be more confident. You could be more out there. You could start dating. I talk to so many women who are single. They want to date. They want to be in a relationship, but they won't because I got to lose 20 pounds. I got to lose 40 pounds. Yeah. And I think to myself, how long have you been waiting? Some people have been waiting many years. And, look around you. There's people of all shapes and all sizes loving on each other, being married and being in relationship. Right. So how do we create a weight loss journey that includes happiness? And how do we get out of dieting consciousness? So dieting generally is focused on eat less, exercise more.
Right.
Dieting essentially trains people how not to eat. This is how you resist all these good foods. This is how you really struggle and use your willpower to not eat this and not eat that. And so people are focused on not eating. Well, guess what? The way you're created, you're an eater. Mm-hmm. This is how you're born. This is how every other human being is born. We are eaters. And if you want to have your natural weight, then you have to learn how to best be a natural eater. Like, how do you be an eater? Mm-hmm. How do you eat in the optimum state of digestion, assimilation, calorie burning, appetite regulation, which is the relaxation response? Mm-hmm. That's when we digest our food, when we're in parasympathetic nervous system dominance. Relaxation response is how we are designed to digest, assimilate, and optimally calorie burn. Relaxation response is when we do all our healing, maintenance, and repair of body tissue. So people are dieting and they're in a stress response. Mm. They're fighting food. They're fighting their appetite. They're fighting their body fat. And that fight, that stress response, creates a cascade of stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, insulin, all of which will help signal the body to store weight, store fat, not build muscle, just the opposite of what you want.
Yeah.
So we have to unlearn dieting and learn how to become eaters.
Yeah. Yeah. I really love that. And that's the same thing. I agree. I think that, for me, many people that I know say, oh, you're so disciplined or whatever. I had a major health transformation a little over 10 years ago, had massive inflammation and pain throughout my fingers, hands, wrists, arms. And I was forced. And this is, by the way, another great point, because I know someone very close to me right now as well, that kind of like feels like they hit rock bottom with some, health issues and fatigue and adrenal and all this kind of stuff. But it forced them to make a change. So sometimes, people, when they hit rock bottom, it can end up being the seed of something much greater and really be inspiring them to make a change. Sometimes, people have to do that. Now, hopefully we can inspire people, to change without hitting rock bottom. But I also agree. I love going to the gym and listening to my audiobooks and podcasts. When I hear people saying, oh, I hate going to the gym, or I hate, and it doesn't have to be the gym. It can be something else, some other form of exercise or something that they do. I enjoy the way that I eat, and it's not a diet, right? This is the way that I choose to eat, to keep inflammation low in my body, to keep my energy high, and I feel great because of it. And it's not a diet. It's not a short-term diet that I'm going to suffer and go through this thing now. It's a long-term thing that I want to stick with. But how do people, if people, what advice would you give to people if they are beating themselves up, if they are kind of suffering through things and like if they're beating themselves up and they don't really realize it, or if they're in this stress response constantly, what advice would you give to people in that situation?
Such a good question. Oftentimes what happens when we're in a constant stress response, I'm freaked out about my life, my situation, my health, my circumstance. There are stressors in life that we cannot avoid. And stress doesn't equal bad. There are plenty of stresses that you and I have experienced, that we've all experienced, and those stressors have made us stronger. We learned how to match them. We learned how to deal with them. We learned how to encounter them. We learned how to metabolize those stresses. And I think as we get older, as we spend more time on planet Earth, as we get a little wiser and more mature, we start to see that the kind of stress that is optional or a little bit more self-chosen definitely doesn't serve us. Mm-hmm. So if my parents are aging and dying, that's a stressor I'm not going to be able to just eliminate. So I have to learn how to work with that. So I have to grow as a person.
Yeah.
So that I'm seeing this situation as beautiful, as sweet, as bittersweet maybe, as my final time getting to be with my parents. So I have to rise to that occasion. So how is my stressor asking me to learn and grow as a human being? Mm-hmm. And also to look at what are the stresses in my life that are optional, that are self-chosen. Example, I'm terrible. I'm fat. I'm no good. Nobody will love me. I'm a victim. My upbringing was bad and it's caused me to be this person. And I'm mad at my mother. I'm mad at my father. And that's where I'm going to hang. Well, yeah, we might have a lot of good reasons to be mad at people. And at some point, we need to learn how to modulate our own experience such that we could be the human being that we came here to be. There's some experiences need to be digested and assimilated, and you excrete what you don't need, and you transmute what you do need into energy, into more power, into more learning, into wisdom. So I'm always going to ask, my clients, my friends, my family, my loved ones, like, what is this teaching you? And where are the stressors that you don't need to have? What are the beliefs that you hold that are causing you upset that you don't need to have? And a lot of times it's the self-attack, it's the self-blame, it's guilt, it's shame that we carry, it's judgment that we carry towards others or towards ourselves. And those stressors, they mount, they build up, and they occupy us. And it's a great place to cleanse ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thoughts and beliefs that we don't need.
Yes. Yes. I love conversations about thoughts and beliefs and things of that nature. Big Tony Robbins fan, big neuro-linguistic programming, fan as well. And it brings me the question, like, with regards to stress, it's a very interesting topic, right? Because what stresses out one person doesn't necessarily stress out another person, right? That, some people are stressed out just by, having to, run errands all day, and other people, that wouldn't stress them out at all. That would be relaxing to them, and they get stressed out by other things. There's some tools. So for one, there's a great book actually called The Upside of Stress, which actually had a profound impact on my life, probably added a few years to my life because it reframed the way that I look at stress. And I wonder if different type of, another one is Kabbalah, just studying a specific Kabbalah class that I took, which was very focused on helping you become less reactive, right? So I used to get triggered a lot, and I still sometimes do, but now it's a lot less as I've done this personal development. How much of a role do you think it seems to me, I'm curious to hear your opinion, like doing personal development, doing the work on yourself, whatever work that may be, that I feel like that I feel like if you, and I can't speak for everyone, for myself, if I do more personal development, if I learn how to calm myself, be less reactive, pause more, be more patient, not reactively respond to things, but instead, take a pause, take some breaths, maybe give it 24 hours before you respond to that email or whatever it is. Certain things like that have helped me reduce the stress in my life, even though I'm probably doing many more things,
Yes. So I think work on self is arguably the best work we could ever do for ourselves and for the people around us, for the people closest to us and the people that are impacted by us. That's how we advance, I think, as a species. That's how we advance as a society. I mean, think about it. We have brought ourselves out of dark ages. We've brought ourselves out of times when, maybe the politics weren't so fair. Maybe people were not treated kindly. People were not treated well. And as society becomes more enlightened, society only becomes more enlightened because individuals become more enlightened. Individuals become more aware. We become more present. We become more wise. We become just more compassionate human beings. So that's not easy. I think what happens is that oftentimes in the personal growth universe, there's an unspoken message that goes something like, you got a problem. It's your fault. You got to fix yourself. Okay, I'm going to do all this personal growth shit. And personal growth stuff is really great. It's wonderful. But a lot of times we're doing it because I am deficient. I am broken. I have a problem. And really, when you think about it, you and I are born into a world that doesn't necessarily support your highest growth. The world didn't support your highest health. The world didn't say, okay, Talur, you're born into this planet. Here's a great diet. Here's all kinds of good foods. That's the only kind of food your parents are going to be able to feed you is good food because that's all there is. And you know something? We're gonna make sure we find a job for you that really matches your personality and your purpose and your mission and your soul. Not so easy. It's not easy being a human being in a world where there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of craziness, there's a lot of upset, and we have to learn how to be me in all of that. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, as a starting place, it's not easy. So I just want to make sure with people who are doing personal growth that we always know we're trying to elevate ourselves in a world that doesn't make it easy. So if it doesn't feel easy, it's because it isn't.
Right. And other people also are saying things like, well, I read that book and, I felt a little better for a week, but then, then I went back to my, I think another thing for people to understand is that it's a never ending process, right? I mean, you could be 70, 80, 90 years old and you still are doing work on yourself and working on different things as well. So I think that's another thing to realize is like, it's not a chore. It's not a short-term thing. You're not just going to read one book and some miracle happens most likely. So I think it's a never-ending process as well.
And with that, I think the challenge is so many of the things that we want, we're accustomed to thinking that we should get them instantly.
Yeah.
There's this ethic that, I could win the lottery if I buy a ticket. Or I could hit it big if I do this. Or if I just find the right pill or the right drug, I can lose all the weight. And there's a lot of quick fix mentality that we're exposed to. And the reality is the work is the work is the work. And we need to practice. When you said, speaking to people who say, oh, yeah, I read that book and I felt good for a week, usually that happens because we're not practicing. So I tend to find that, people will grow when there's insight. People will grow with an aha moment. People will grow when there's an inspiration. And we tend to grow most of the time when we're doing the practices that over time help us grow. So the practice of being aware, the practice of staying alert, the practice of being present, the practice of, being loving, the practice of really listening to people that you care about. Those are the practice of listening to your own body, and not having to rely on an expert all the time to tell you what you should be thinking, feeling, or doing. Those are practices.
Yeah. Are there any resources or tools or books that, because obviously I can tell you've also done a lot of personal development, a lot of work on yourself, and you're very aware of like thinking about certain things. And is there any, what had a big impact on your life? And of course, your courses and things like that. I want you to tell everyone about that in a minute as well. But is there anything over the years that you felt helped you become more aware or helped you in your personal growth journey?
What a great question. It's one of the things that was a game changer for me was when I started doing yoga. And what that really was for me was it was a practice of being in my body in a very slow and aware way and noticing my body and noticing my breathing and realizing that even though breathing is involuntary, when you begin to master your own breathing, when you notice that, I can use my breathing to bring down my stress response. I could use my breathing to bring me into relaxation. I could use just my awareness of my body to notice where I'm holding tension. And then that awareness of my body starts to spread into awareness of my appetite, awareness of when I'm hungry, when I'm full, awareness of when, something's bothering me. I wonder if I should have that checked out. Awareness of when something's getting tight and I need to get up out of my chair. So for me, the way I was raised, I was kind of living in my head, and my body was like a life support system for my head. And even though I was an athlete, I still really wasn't in my body. I just wasn't aware of here's how it really works. Here's the nuances of it. So yoga put me on the path to dropping into my body and being able to tune into my own wisdom, which was just very profound for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that, especially, being a fellow New Yorker. There's it seems like, with all the hustle and bustle and aggressiveness of kind of growing up in the New York City area as well, that I noticed when I came out to the West Coast, I noticed more, and I'm sure I just wasn't aware of it or wasn't in tune at that time. I'm sure there's many people in New York as well that are like this, but about how people were dropping in more and feeling more. And I've always like you, have been very visual, very in my head, very kind of, again, athlete, things of that nature. But I think being able to feel, and obviously women will typically be much better at this than men as well, in terms of feeling into their body and feeling different things. And I think it's such an important thing to really, be aware of or try to learn or practice. And so that was a great recommendation with the yoga. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Marc, where can people learn more from you? I know you got some programs, book. Where can people follow you, learn more?
Thanks for asking, Tulor. Psychologyofeating.com. That's our website. All kinds of free resources there. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Just look for Psychology of Eating. We have a great training for people who are looking to get into coaching or already existing professionals who want to learn how to work with weight and body image and overeating and binge eating and emotional eating and all the eating challenges from a truly holistic mind, body, spirit approach, mind, body, eating coach certification training. And we have trainings for the public, have a wonderful emotional eating breakthrough program that people love. So if you're challenged with emotional eating, that's also a great online resource. And a couple of books out there and a great podcast too. I have a podcast where I work with clients. I'll work for one session with people that I haven't met, and they'll just come on and we'll dialogue in 45 minutes to an hour at the most. We'll generally have an opening, generally have a breakthrough in, eating challenges, approach to weight, body image.
I love that. Is that called Psychology of Eating podcast?
Exactly.
Perfect. I really love that, because I was going to say today too that we did talk about a lot of very, very important stuff. But the nature of, psychology is that every person is different in their psychology, and the way that you work with people is going to be different. So there's no like, oh yeah, just do this generic advice, right? So when you're talking about it, like people listening to this, I'm sure they learned a lot, and they also probably were like, I'd like to learn, what do I do exactly for me? What's the advice specifically for me? And of course, that's the real benefit of working with a coach or going through a training program. But that's really cool that on your podcast, they get to get a glimpse into you coaching other people as well. Very cool.
So much fun. So much fun. Yes.
Amazing. Well, Marc, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been a real pleasure, and hope we could do it again soon.
I appreciate the opportunity, Tulor. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're doing this work.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, can you please leave us a rating or review and subscribe? I've realized that while we have actually increased our downloads a lot, we're actually getting a lot of downloads, which I'm really happy about. We actually have very few ratings. And I realized that I've never asked people really to rate much. So I'm asking you now if you could please rate and review and subscribe. And if you enjoyed the episode, please forward it along to anyone that you think will get value out of this. Also, if you haven't checked out our line of products at buypeakperformance.com, you get 20% off your first order. That's www.buypeakperformance.com. peakperformance.com. We have some incredible products, including our organic high-altitude coffee. If you don't know this, coffee is one of the most heavily sprayed with pesticides out of any crop. So it's really important that you drink organic coffee. We've gone above and beyond to source what we believe is the highest quality and healthiest organic coffee in the world. We're also famous for our organic green superfood powder. You can get 20% off of that as well at buypeakperformance.com. We also have an organic vegan and paleo plant protein. See, most of the vegan proteins out there are using brown rice protein, which is really not a good source of protein, and it's also a grain. And if you're paleo, you know that grains tend to cause inflammation in some cases for some people. And so we wanted to make one that was paleo friendly and vegan and organic. We made an amazing amino acid profile, so it's really one of the best plant proteins for muscle building. So you can check out Peak Performance Organic Plant Protein. You can find that on our website. Of course, all our products are on Amazon as well. So thanks again. And again, please, if you enjoyed the episode, please forward it along to someone who you feel can get value out of it. And please leave us a rating, review, and subscribe. Thank you.